General Hospital spoilers for Monday, May 5 reveal that a new shockwave has just been triggered within the intelligence campaign in Port Charles as a long-buried truth is suddenly confirmed. Jocelyn's past, a part of her history that she had hidden even from her closest allies, is now exposed. No longer just a rumor in the WSB hallways. No longer blacked-out files in classified archives, but a series of specific, clear, and undeniable facts. Jocelyn was unofficially recruited years ago into a secret training program for candidates with special potential, and it was there that she first made contact with Professor Hank Dalton. This was not a typical academic connection. When Dalton was in California, he ran a specialized project focused on cyber warfare and counterintelligence data mining, and during a particularly sensitive period. Jocelyn was embedded in the research group as a nominal intern. At the time, she was just a teenager, smart, but still raw with youthful enthusiasm, eager to prove herself. Yet constrained by security protocols. Dalton, as the supervisor, recognized the tactical potential in the way she handled data, and though he never publicly acknowledged it, he considered her one of the undercover assets he could utilize when needed. The revelation of this past completely alters the trajectory of Jocelyn's current position. Once considered a questionable agent, even regarded as a backup option if Emma failed, Jocelyn is now the only one with a historical connection to a key figure in the campaign, Dalton. This not only gives her a strategic advantage in convincing the professor to trust her, but it also shakes the very structure of the organization backing the campaign, where those who once saw her as a rookie must now face the reality that she has been in the game for much longer than they ever knew. Just never revealing her true role. Jocelyn herself realizes the time has come for her to stop hiding. Her first adjustment is in how she approaches Dalton. Previously, she was cautious, staying within the academic framework, avoiding drawing too much attention. But now, she takes a more proactive stance. Her meetings with Dalton take on a more collaborative tone rather than a learning one. The questions she asks are no longer merely academic but subtly hint at international relations, encrypted data, and even campaigns that had been cancelled in the past, topics that could only come from someone deeply trained within the intelligence system. Dalton, despite his calm demeanor, begins to show signs of discomfort. He knows who she is, but he never expected her to have come this far. In this context, Jocelyn begins to reshape her own image, not as a successor, not as a young agent trying to grasp power, but as someone with a deep historical connection to the campaign, someone long entrenched with key players, and most importantly, the only one who understands Dalton not just in theory, but from within the system he once controlled. Jocelyn's new strategy is not just about reclaiming her position as a research assistant. It's a complete reshaping of her role within the ongoing counterintelligence campaign. She no longer just represents a new generation of WSB agents, she is the bridge between the past and the present. Between what was buried in secret training programs and the strategic decisions the organization is executing today. But with this elevation comes a new wave of danger. The revelation of her past not only raises Jocelyn's status but also makes her a target. Those aligned with Emma, those in DVX who feared Jocelyn's covert influence over Dalton, now have even more reason to remove her from the board. Leaked classified information, backstabbing attacks on her reputation, and even psychological warfare are beginning to surface. But Jocelyn is no longer the easy target she once was. She knows how to fight back. And now, she is wielding her past as a sword, not to protect, but to attack. In her new interactions with Dalton, neither is the teacher nor the student anymore. They are two people who once knew each other's weaknesses, who once hid truths from each other, and who are now facing off once again, not with words, but with actions and strategy. And in between them is a greater war unfolding, a battle between two ideologies, two intelligence factions, and two generations of agents where the line between friend and foe is no longer clear. Rocco is entering a stage of maturity that no one in his family, including Dante and Lulu, could have predicted. He is no longer a carefree child living in the shadow of his parents. Now, Rocco is beginning to form his own independent thoughts, his own calculations, and what is most concerning is that he is focusing on the dark areas of his family that have never been revealed. A series of new adjustments begin to show in how Rocco perceives Dante, as he realizes not every truth has been told honestly, and not every action of his father is as pure as it seems. Rocco, who always felt there was something left unsaid, has finally come across a series of notes hidden in Lulu's laptop, unsent pages, conflicting journal entries, and, particularly, descriptions of another child, one that Dante had with Brooke Lynn but had never publicly acknowledged. In Rocco's eyes, this is no longer a personal secret. It is a betrayal. Not just to Lulu, but to him, as he is living in a system built on secrecy and imposed choices. Rocco's new calculations are not simply a rebellious teen's reaction. He is planning, quietly and shrewdly in ways Dante could never imagine. Rocco no longer seeks answers from the adults. Instead, he is digging for information on his own, collecting data, and even beginning to establish his own connections to verify what Lulu has written. He no longer fully trusts Dante, and this poses a dangerous shift in the once solid father-son relationship. This adjustment is not only creating a rift in their familial bond, but it is also causing a ripple effect within the structure of secrets in the family. Dante, in an effort to protect Rocco from the painful consequences of the truth, is inadvertently bringing him closer to sensitive information. Rocco no longer needs Lulu to know the truth, he has the motivation and the skills to unlock everything himself. And that is putting Lulu in danger. Everything she has concealed, for Dante's sake, to keep the family peace, is now at risk of being exposed by Rocco in a way she cannot control. Lulu, who had hoped that when she woke from her coma, she would be able to reunite and rebuild everything peacefully, now realizes that the past never stays quiet. The words she once wrote in unconsciousness, the inner conflicts she never had the courage to express, are now fueling an underground rebellion that her own son is starting. And what's worse, she cannot stop him. He no longer listens to her as he once did. He is acting like an adult, a person who wants to expose everything that has been distorted in the name of protection. Meanwhile, Dante is beginning to feel the heavy pressure of noticing strange behavior from his son. He cannot understand why Rocco has become cold, distant, and seems to be monitoring his every move. He has no idea that decisions made quietly, like hiding his relationship with Brooke Lynn or covering up the truth about Gio, are now being analyzed by Rocco like a young detective. And once the truth is exposed, not only will Dante be hurt, but the entire trust structure within the Falconeri family could collapse entirely. A new wave of risks is taking shape. No longer from external forces, but from within, from a child who was once obedient, now becoming the most unstable factor in the house. Rocco is no longer the one being protected. He is the one seeking his own brand of justice, at any cost. And if Dante or Lulu do not quickly control this undertow, a new disaster within their family will be inevitable. Drew Kane is gradually transforming from a man on the brink of ruin, cornered by betrayal, suspicion, and his own carelessness. Recently, he has been slandered, dragged into scandals involving drugs, and lost control over key decisions, both in business and in personal relationships. But in the midst of this chaos, Drew has not fallen. Instead, he has quietly withdrawn to reassess his entire course of action. And now, a new version of Drew is emerging, sharper, more rational, and more dangerous than ever before. A man no longer acting out of belief, but out of survival and revenge. What Drew is doing now is not self-defense. He is proactively launching a full-scale counterattack. Not just to regain his position but to destroy a force that has always secretly manipulated everything from the shadows, Nina Reeves. A woman who has gradually infiltrated the town's power structure, using her blood relation to Willow to gain trust, and slowly turning emotions into a weapon of control. But Drew has seen through this entire scheme. And he no longer accepts remaining passive in the role of an appointed guardian isolated in his own battle. The starting point for Drew's entire strategy is Willow, whom he is trying to protect, but who is unwittingly becoming a pawn in his hands. Willow, despite trying to remain neutral between her biological mother and her former partner, begins to unravel as the mounting pressure from both sides becomes unbearable. Nina uses tears, promises, and atonement to pull Willow towards her, while Drew uses reason, legal guardianship, and stability to force Willow to confront the reality that if she continues to let Nina influence her path, the consequences will not only be personal but also affect the safety of both children. Wiley and Amelia. Drew is quietly expanding his influence around Willow, not only controlling her medical and financial decisions but also starting to impact her relationships with friends, colleagues, and even the charities she's involved in. He is slowly transforming himself into the legal center of every decision, not just as a lover or friend, but as a manager, a protector, a coordinator. Step by step, Drew is making Willow feel as though her world is shrinking, and he is the only door left open to her. This may sound excessive, but for Drew, it is the only way to save Willow from Nina's toxic influence. From Nina's perspective, this is a serious threat. She senses that Drew is no longer the quiet, easily manipulated man he once was. Early signs, like his request to reassess Nina's access to Wiley or his digging into legal documents regarding Nina's past psychiatric confinement, are indirect but extremely dangerous blows. Nina could once manipulate Carly through emotional tactics and make Sonny blind with love, but with Drew, everything is handled through logic, facts, and legality. And that is something Nina cannot control. The battle between Nina and Drew is beginning to take shape, not as petty arguments or sudden face-offs, but as a quiet war, with each step carefully calculated. Drew is rebuilding trust in political relationships, regaining financial power at ELQ, and most notably, he is seeking to access confidential records about Nina's involvement in past information trading operations. These pieces of evidence, if exposed, could not only destroy Nina's reputation but also strip her of her guardianship, permanently removing her from Willow and the children's lives. But Nina is not one to be easily subdued. She is attempting to dig into Drew's medical history, exploiting moments when he lost control in the past to force him to face a psychological oversight board, even potentially rendering him unfit for guardianship. Nina is also starting to approach the media, casting doubt on the community about Drew using his position to manipulate the life of a woman once gravely ill, using power to isolate her from her biological family. Willow, in the middle of this, is gradually becoming a victim of a much larger battle than she could have ever imagined. Every word she speaks is analyzed, every small decision is pulled in opposing directions. And this is creating a new obsession within her, that she is no longer an independent person but merely a variable in the power game between two people who once claimed to love her. This madness is growing, and none of them can control the full consequences anymore. Drew is being pulled into the quagmire of revenge. Nina is losing control of her emotions. And Willow may be the first to collapse if this war continues to escalate. But one thing is certain, this battle will not stop. Because neither of these two adversaries will accept defeat. And when two worlds, one built on cold logic, the other on intense emotion, collide, disaster is no longer a distant prospect. It has already begun. Right now, Mac is conducting an investigation on a scale and depth like never before, targeting a series of senators holding crucial positions in legislative committees related to national security and the management of special funds in Port Charles and surrounding areas. Initially, the investigation was merely an internal review after signs of irregularities in the allocation of budget for public health projects appeared. But the deeper Mac digs, the more he uncovers a hidden layer of truth, a covert system where political power is controlled through drugs, bribery, and deliberate silence. Mac, who has always prioritized justice, cannot ignore this truth. What he has found shocks even a seasoned veteran like him. Some senators, who had once been seen as symbols of ethics and community service, have secretly used drugs during closed-door meetings, even being linked to interstate drug trafficking rings disguised as charitable organizations. This is not merely a political scandal. It is a systemic shock, a collapse of ethics, power structures, and public trust in the leaders they once voted for. The obsession Mac is facing is not only due to the severity of the matter but also because he knows that those he is investigating are not isolated individuals. They are part of a network. Protected by systems in place, capable of making anyone who gets too close to the truth disappear. That is why Mac continues to press on, a testament to his courage and determination. He is no longer just the sheriff, but a symbol of an impending political purge, an unforgiving battle against those who have abused power for personal gain. The investigation quickly expands. Mac orders blood samples, checks security footage from the closed meetings, and even secretly coordinates with anonymous witnesses, people who once worked as drivers, assistants, or logistical staff in election campaigns and are now willing to speak the truth. The first testimonies reveal a list of unexpected names, including figures once hailed as warriors for the people, whose true faces are now being exposed one by one. Amid this, Mac faces enormous pressure both internally and externally. Anonymous calls begin to appear, warnings of accidents, if he doesn't stop, even subtle offers of bribery. But Mac does not back down. Because he knows that if he doesn't do this, no one else will. He has seen the victims, the families destroyed by policies pushed through under the influence of addicts and corrupt individuals. And he is determined that they will pay. A purge is about to take place, not a covert campaign but a public, systematic and politically charged crackdown. Mac is preparing for decisive steps, requesting arrest warrants, holding emergency hearings, and publicly releasing the list of senators under investigation with specific evidence. Some will lose their immunity, be suspended, and even face criminal prosecution. Port Charles is bracing for impact. Because this time, the madness is no longer in the background. It has reached the highest seats of power. And Mac, with all his experience, courage, and the anger he has suppressed for so long, is ready to do what no one else dares, pull back the curtain, expose everyone, and declare that in Port Charles, no one, not even a senator or congressional leader, can stand above the law. Sonny is starting to realize that everything around him is changing in a dangerous and unpredictable way. It is no longer the usual trouble in the underground world that he once controlled with his fists, loyalty, and the code of silence. This time, what he's facing is a new kind of threat, more sophisticated, quieter, but just as destructive as any bloody hit he's encountered in the past. Unusual signs from trusted sources. Random yet suspiciously recurring events, and especially the strange absence of old allies are all creating an invisible trap that Sonny is beginning to feel, though he can't yet put it into words. But what complicates the situation even further is that Sonny himself is changing. He is no longer the arrogant man sitting at the top of the power chain, never bowing to anyone. In recent years, the losses, betrayals, and the cost of old battles have somewhat eroded his once impenetrable resilience. And now, in a situation where the lines between friends and enemies are increasingly blurred, Sonny is forced to consider something that was never part of his survival dictionary, cooperating with someone like Jack Brennan. Brennan, a figure always associated with danger and ambiguous motives, has now become the only person offering Sonny a way out of the tightening investigation surrounding him. No one knows who Brennan really represents. Some believe he is a disgraced WSB agent quietly rebuilding his influence. Others are sure he has aligned himself with DVX in a senior role. But Sonny knows one thing for sure, Brennan knows too much. And he isn't approaching Sonny out of affection or morality. Brennan is here because he needs Sonny, or more precisely, he needs what Sonny represents, power, the fear his name instills, and the irreplaceable network in the underground world of Port Charles. Sonny's consideration of this partnership is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of survival, a person who has lived long enough to know that sometimes, in order to protect what remains, you have to play by someone else's rules, even if only for a limited time. But this choice has inadvertently pulled him into a new whirlwind, where every piece of information shared, every coordinated action, could become a double-edged sword. Brennan is not like the people Sonny has worked with before. He owes no one, is loyal to no system, and most importantly, he is not afraid of exposure. This makes their alliance not only fragile but also laden with the risk of disaster. While Sonny is trying to figure out who is truly behind the federal investigations and the schemes to dismantle his empire, Brennan seems to know exactly who the players are. And if he chooses to share, it's because he has a bigger goal, a game where Sonny is just a pawn to be activated at the right moment. In the bigger picture, Brennan isn't helping Sonny because he wants to save him. He is helping Sonny because he needs a strong enough warrior to face the real enemy, then later eliminate that warrior if he's no longer of tactical value. Sonny, with all his survival instincts and battle-hardened experience, is beginning to sense that this cooperation won't bring relief. It only opens a new chapter in a war where, for the first time, he cannot control all the information. Deals are being made in the shadows, unofficial memos, unspoken agreements that carry the weight of a sentence. And with every step, Sonny must ask himself, is he handing over his own future to a disaster bigger than anything he's faced before? The partnership with Brennan is a double-edged sword. On one side, it's an opportunity for survival, to retain power and protect those he loves. On the other, it's the possibility of being wiped out by the very hand he once shook. And in this rising obsession, where the enemy no longer reveals itself, where the rules are no longer a safety net, Sonny is stepping into a new chapter where the author is no longer him. And the scariest part is, he knows this, yet he must keep moving forward. Because this time, it's not about winning. It's about surviving.